Hello everyone, welcome to Eternal Brews. My name is Pojo, and today I want to talk about something that's a little bit unique to Eternal, which is the idea of Recursive Advantage. This is something that comes into play a little bit in other card games, but really doesn't have quite the same impact as it does in Eternal, due to the fact that cards in Eternal have a very, very specific and interesting function where if they are changed, if they are altered, if they are buffed in any way, that change persists across all zones. Now, normally in like a paper card game, if you make a change to a card, you give it like a buff or a +1/+1 or a new skill or something like that, then you have to indicate it with like a token, and then like once you send it back to your hand or you put it in the void, because you can't keep track of it anymore, you have to basically reset the card, and then the card will basically just go back to being whatever it was before. In Eternal, that's not true, because Eternal cards are digital constructs and the game can maintain this information for you. That means that it is able to maintain changes across zones, and indeed the game is designed around this idea. So anytime that you give a unit a skill or a buff, or if you silence the unit, or if you do anything that changes the unit or the spell or any card in your hand in any way, that change persists until the end of the game. And that leads to some really powerful and interesting effects. One of the very common ones is one that is common in the Xenon Killers deck, which is the interaction between Copper Conduit and Dark Return. And let's go ahead and start there. So Copper Conduit has Power Surge and Overwhelm, and when you summon it, you gain strength and health equal to your power spent. So if you pay 3 for a Copper Conduit, you get a 3/3 Conduit. And then if that Conduit dies, you Dark Return it, it's still a 3/3 Conduit. So it gets +1/+1 from the Dark Return, becomes a 4/4. You play it again for, say, 4. The Power Surge happens again, and it becomes an 8/8 with Overwhelm. So you can continually build upon this card. If you give this Predator's Instinct, then it will always have Killer, and that means that every time it is played, the Killer will be available for a single special attack. And this does refresh in between zones, so if you return it to your hand, or if you bring it back from the void, the Killer will activate again on the next time that you play it. That also happens with ultimates and other abilities, so it's a really useful ability. The same thing happens with Protects. Aegises refresh when you replay them from the void. All of this kind of stuff basically means that you can build a really, really big creature, and then when you Dark Return, or when you in some way repeat the casting of that unit, all of the relevant effects, the killers, the Aegis, the stat buffs, will be cast again. So this leads to that idea of Recursive Advantage, which is to say that when you are repeating an effect, you are also repeating any other effects that have modified that card. So anytime you repeat a card, you also get to repeat the Predator's Instinct, and the Protect, and the Righteous Fury if you have Righteous Fury in the deck. We'll show a variant of that at the end of this one. So as a result, if you can get units with lots of with the ability to come back from the void, or if you can have a lot of void return spells, and you in some way buff cards, you can reap extremely huge advantage out of playing those cards. And that's the idea behind this deck, or at least that's half of the idea behind this deck. There's also another fun thing that we do, which is we steal cards from people. So in addition to playing with Dark Return, we also play with Devour and Safe Return, a card that puts a unit into your hand and gives it +1/+1. Now, when you Madness to steal an enemy unit, you can either Devour it for an extra 2 cards. This is a very powerful advantage, of course, since it puts the unit into your void, and then you can, from there, Dark Return it back and cast it again. But either way, your opponent no longer has any access to it unless he can somehow steal it out of your void, which currently there is no way to do it. An even better option, though, is to Madness something and then Safe Return it, which is a slightly cheaper option that allows you to put the unit into your hand and then cast it again. In addition, it gets that +1/+1 bonus, and this is a really effective way to permanently steal something with Madness. So that's a pretty good setup for us. So those are the 2 central themes behind this deck. First off, making sure that we can recur lots of units and get a lot of stuff going with that, and basically just reap the advantages of continually buffing our units with cards like Predator's Instinct, Protect, with persistent buff effects like that of Order of the Spire's Empower. Every time Order of the Spire gets a power played down, it doubles in power and toughness. So if we're continually recurring it, and it's got Predator's Instincts and Protects and the like, then that's something that will be really, really hard to deal with. And we can also protect it with our Protects and our Safe Returns, so we can make this into a really, really big and nasty threat. And then, of course, we also have the stealing things, the madness, that kind of feature. Okay, so overall units here, we keep it very, very light. We have Copper Conduits first as a very reliable unit that is not only pretty flexible, but also one of the best things to Dark Return or Safe Return. Typically, if you try to play this down with a single power open, and then when your opponent targets it with a spell, you Safe Return, and that will basically bring it back to the hand where you can play it again and get additional bonuses. In addition, we have Order of the Spire for a similar sort of effect where we just have lots and lots of extra power returns. Finally, we have Desert Marshals, which are repeatable summon effects that silence. This is really good if you have Dark Return and Safe Return, because you can easily bring back Desert Marshal to deal with any one particular threat. And of course we have Hooru Envoy, which is a card that really loves being targeted by Predator's Instinct and Protect. Under the new patch changes, and this is actually really kind of a cool thing, devouring the Hooru Envoy is no longer just a cost of the spell. If you devour Hooru Envoy, you do target it directly, which means that if someone targets your Hooru Envoy and you devour, you will draw a card for the card that they tried to kill your Hooru Envoy with. You will draw a card for the Devour effect, and then you will draw 2 cards for the Devour, draw 2 cards and get 2 health. So Hooru Envoy and Devour work very well together. Hooru Envoy also likes Predator's Instinct and Protect. If you want to, you can include a fun of Augmented Form in this deck, or some other types of buff spells to make Hooru Envoy even better, but that's entirely your prerogative. Combrei Healer is currently a one-of. You can run as many as 4 if you feel that you are having problems with Jito decks and other issues. This card does, of course, provide a permanent stat buff, but the health isn't as meaningful as attack on Conduits or Order of the Spire, so we tend to leave this alone. Another fun one to include is Healer's Cloak. That one's really great on an Order of the Spire or a really big Conduit. Either one can get you out of the range of burn in ways that are really, really good and have some good synergy with this deck. Finally, we include 4 of Harsh Rules for when our Instincts and our Madness Devour combos don't quite do the trick, just to make sure that we have enough removal in the deck. So there's Instinct, Madness, and Harsh Rule is removal, and then we primarily focus on Recursion through Dark Return, Safe Return, and a single Grasping at Shadows. That's the basic deck. Let's go ahead and go into some gameplay, and then we'll do a postmortem. Alright, we're up against Mo and Chone. Shadows, Seed of Mystery, Devour, the Madness. So I have the Madness Devour combo, and that's usually strong enough to actually keep a hand like this. But seeing as I have no green, I think I'm going to toss this back. Because green's pretty important. You need it for a lot of things. This looks a little bit better. Desert Marshal into Safe Return means that I have the ability to silence 2 units. It's not great as far as early pressure goes. We're looking for something a little bit more substantial like a Copper Conduit, but we can find a Madness or find anything fun. That'll certainly help. Go ahead and Desert Marshal here. Then I can give that killer and knock this thing off. That'll be especially nice because then I can use Predator's Instinct to do some damage. It'll be a pretty good time. Got any more 0-2s? No? Okay. Alright, well in that case we'll just attack here. Play a Time Sigil, and I'm going to wait on Order of the Spire until next turn. Typically you always want to play Order of the Spire and Copper Conduit with 1 additional power up. And the reason for that is so that you can Safe Return it or so that you can Protect with it. Alright, Thorn Beast eating something alive to get himself up to 5/5. Certainly not all that uncommon. Let's go ahead and play Order of the Spire. And we are good to go here. Desert Marshal would like to be in this mess, but I don't think that I have any particular reason to put him out yet. Go ahead and Safe Return since we don't have a follow-up to a second torch. He has a second torch, he'll cast it now. Okay. We got away with that. Blocking the 5 doesn't seem like that bad an idea. I think I'll stay put, though. A ticking Grenadin. That is certainly something to be worried about. And this might die next turn, but this turn it kills the Thorn Beast. And that should be good enough. 6/6 Killer Order of the Spire. That will get bigger and bigger as time goes on. Most likely he'll Annihilate or Death Strike at this turn, in which case we can Dark Return it later and get a pretty big bang out of that. Looks like he didn't have an immediate removal spell, so he's Devouring to try and find one. That's good. Glad to have that happen. Ideally, I should have attacked with the Desert Marshal to try and pressure a little bit more. Go ahead and swing with these two. And let's play a Hooru Envoy. That'll allow me to draw some extra cards, get a little bit more going on. Oh, my. Okay, Moenshone has an Obsidian Golem in this mix. It's not a particularly big deal for us. We'll go ahead and attack with everything. I don't see any reason why not. He'll get his 2/2 weapon if he blocks the Hooru Envoy. But he's not likely to want to do that. Yep, did in fact. So we'll play a Copper Conduit. Get a nice 5/5 Overwhelm, and this is working out pretty well without even all that much recursion. Yep, looks like not enough damage for Moenshone, so we call that one good. Alright, we're up against, let's see here, Typhoony. And the opening hand is what we really want, which is a Copper Conduit early. It's especially nice if we have extra recursion in here, but mainly just getting some units to play is one of the most important things that we can have in this deck. So let's go ahead and make sure that we can set up. Got double Justice already. We need double Shadow for Grasping at Shadows. My opponent is playing some yellow-blue stuff. Second Sight looks like it might be a Static Bolt or Teriax Hatchling deck. Saw 1 or 2 of those on the ladder today. Let's go ahead and play... I'll play Conduit on 3. That's usually a good balance. It's not a very good 2/2 for 2, but it's a pretty good 3/3 for 3. And we're going to want to play Order of the Spire on 4. Awesome. So we play Copper Conduit. That gives us our 3/3. And we'll see if this becomes the target of anything. He's got his own 3/3, that's fine. So I will play a Combrei healer here to give this little health bonus. And we're gonna just avoid playing our power since we've got Order of the Spire. Swing for 3 instead. My opponent wants to try to pressure me. I have a 2/2 to exchange with him, and I will have Order of the Spire next turn. Could block 2 here and then just Harsh Rule next turn. I think I'm good. So we'll Order of the Spire here. Generate another 2/2. See if he can permafrost that. At some point we'll Devour Copper Conduit, but we might actually wait depending on what it is that we're planning on doing. Like if I want to Harsh Roll this turn, that's actually acceptable. think I'll just go ahead and go for a block here, just to prevent some damage. My opponent's trying to pressure me out, and that's not going to fly. So I play a power here. And let's go ahead and Devour this. And what do you know? Madness safe return is pretty solid next turn if we want to do that. Alternatively, I can Harsh Rule. Crystallize means that we're stunned for a turn. No blocks there, we'll take our damage. We're not afraid of losing on board since we have Harsh Rule. So let's just go ahead and do that. Should have played the Seed of Progress first so that I could buff the 4/4, but we'll just hold off. Now there are two options for my Dark Return. If I Dark Return Copper Conduit, I get back a 4/7 that then gets another +4 bonus and becomes an 8/10. If I get back Order of the Spire, I only get a 5/5 that turns into a 10/10, which overall I think is a better deal. Let's go ahead and do that. Order of the Spire, 5/5. Play it down. Seed of Progress makes a 10/10. The one disadvantage here is that this does not have Overwhelm, and since my opponent is playing a lot of token strategies, we should be a little bit careful about how much we want to deal with that. A 2/3 Stormlink's not really all that scary a card. The second Crystallize that we've seen so far. Now, if I want to, I can steal this Stormlinks, and that will pretty much deprive him of any available resources that he has, but it's also not that important a card to steal. Let's just play the Copper Conduit instead. We'll have some pressure that way, and we can see if we can steal something bigger or scarier. Madness is also very useful here as a tool to ensure that we get our lethal in. Like if I steal Jotun Hurler and the 2/3, I believe we just have lethal this turn, which is a pretty good deal. That does not necessarily account for Lightning Strike, which I assume is in his deck, but we're gonna give it a shot. That's 22 even, and there you go. Alright, here we are up against Lagos. The opening hand doesn't have any sort of playable cards in it. It's got a nice set of cards for actually fixing power and setting up Harsh Rule, which kind of appeals to me a little bit. I like Seek Power into other things. I think that with the Harsh Rule here, it's almost worth keeping, but we're going to redraw it. Alright, much better. We do want to actually get a time here, or else we're not going to be able to play anything. But if we get the time, then we have Copper Conduit, we have Safe Return, we have, you know, a couple of good options. Dark Return, okay. So yeah, this is going to be really, really tricky, really, really fast, but let's see what we can do. Logos is playing some sort of Felm control deck. That's a kind of deck that we want to see more of. Definitely better than the Armory archetypes we've been running into. A little bit tougher for us to deal with those. Although a big Copper Conduit can sometimes do fine. Alright. Scheme here. If this deck has Gorgon Fanatic or Direwood Beastcaller, we can win the game very quickly with a well-placed Madness. So we should be very careful to use that when we can. I still need to find time. If I don't find time, then I basically just have to try and win off of Madness, Devour, and Dark Return, so we gotta find time. I'm not sure what my opponent is scheming for, but it's certainly taken him some time. There we go. Ah, another Madness, okay. So if he plays down like a Gorgon Fanatic right here, that would be the ideal. Come on, come on. What are we playing? If it ends up being a Felm Bloodcaster, then less fun. Less good. Alright, Steward of the Past. That card is a scary card in its own right, but we don't care about it too much because we're just going to Madness Safe Return it on our next turn. Let's grab the second Justice that I need, and then we'll Madness Safe Return or Madness Devour the Steward. Which of those would I like to do? I think Madness Safe Return feels like the best option. Okay, Wisdom there, draws him some cards. Gets to swing with that. Alright, and I can't actually Madness Devour here anyways, so we're gonna Madness. Swing for 3. Safe Return steals it. And hopefully we'll be able to make something out of that soon. I still got Madness Devour, so I have a good set of combos for the next couple of cards that he wants to play. But ideally we just want to get Copper Conduit going. So what's up, Logos? What are we planning? Primal Sigil into a Champion of Cunning. My card has Aegis, which makes it very, very threatening. If I can steal it, that is just ideal, but until then, basically just have to play down a Copper Conduit here. I'm gonna have to look real hard for a way to steal it. Anything like Predator's Instinct would be okay, although Predator's Instinct would probably be better used on the Copper Conduit. But yeah, if I Instinct, then I can steal the champion, and then I can actually start buffing my own units, which is pretty cool. We'll find the way and make sure that we have 5 Shadow of our own. That Aegis, though, bit tricky. Okay. Gives you another Primal. As long as it's not another Shadow, that's okay. Hooru Envoy, pretty cool card. Actually, I'm going to play this, and I'm going to immediately Devour it for 3 cards. Since that gives us a couple of more options. And hopefully finds us a Protect or a Predator's Instinct or something that we can play. It looks like it just found us a little bit more power. Not as big a deal. Devour there kills Copper Conduit. I can Dark Return Conduit and play it next turn for a pretty sizable discount. And I probably should do that now so that I don't get it stewarded. So we still need to find a Predator's Instinct or a Protect, or another Madness, anything that I can directly target this champion with. Predator's Instinct would be really nice right now. Nope, okay. Well, we'll just play the 12/12 Copper Conduit. See how well that serves us. Looks like we're gonna be a little bit behind here. Scheme, looking for probably a Feeding Time would be the worst thing. I don't have Devour available at the moment, so that'd be pretty rough. Scheme again, okay, so looking pretty desperately for an Annihilate would be my guess, or another Shadow Sigil. We will see. Alright, Permafrost, not as big a deal as some of the other options that could have happened. And there we go, there's Predator's Instinct. So let's go ahead and steal this. First we pop the Aegis, then we steal the unit. Swing for 5. And I cannot wait until it comes back, so I'm going to have to Devour it now. That sets us up pretty well, though. I can Desert Marshal next turn to get a 12/12. I think 12/12 is big enough, so we'll go ahead and go for that. Levitate draws you a card. I don't know, maybe we want to hold on to this 12-12. Considering how good Champion of Cunning is, I think I'm actually, yeah, I'm okay to play Desert Marshal at the end of turn here. Force some removal out, then I can play Copper Conduit as an 8-8. Vara's Favor, definitely a good push card. Got that shadow that he needs. We'll go ahead and silence here. That gives me a 12-12 to attack with. Swing with both of these guys. Is a Death Strike available? Let's go ahead and go with Steward of the Past or Copper Conduit. Both really good options. I kind of like saving Copper Conduit until I know if I have a Dark Return or a Safe Return, but at the same time... Yeah, no, I am going to want to save Copper Conduit for a Safe Return, because Dark Return can be used on Champion of Cunning. So we'll go ahead and play a Justice Sigil here, and let's get some power out of our deck. The more the better. Logos plays a Primal. Play a Depleted Power, Seek Powers. Swing for 6 here. If we see another removal card out of his deck, then we'll play the Copper Conduit. I think I'm probably good with this kind of pressure, though. 6 damage a turn seems like enough. And there's a Safe Return, so I can play an Undepleted Power. Swing for 6 here. End my turn. And now he's got 3 problems that he needs to deal with. And I have a Safe Return to turn this problem into a 20-20, which is just a crazy amount of nonsense. We're actually okay, in general, with Copper Conduit receiving that negative buff, because I still have Safe Return for it. Okay, so now we'll Safe Return. The Steward's pretty unfortunate. We do want to play Copper Conduit here, and we will. He's now at 22-13. We'll see what kind of removal's left. Steward of the Past doesn't solve this problem, so unless he has hard removal, we can push through for lethal next turn. And if he does have hard removal, then, well, we're kind of back to square one, which is not really where we want to be. But it looks like no hard removal, so we exhausted him of our efforts, and we got a really, really big Copper Conduit, just like we wanted to. So that is our latest Brews deck, our Recursive Advantage Fun Times. This is a different version of the deck that runs in 4 colors. We use Grasping at Shadows and Jack the Bounty Hunter and a bunch of other things, along with Righteous Fury as a main way of pushing damage. Pyroknights here are the thing that we can use in addition to Copper Conduits to generate that Recursive Advantage. It's often a lot more reliable in producing like really dangerous killer units, because the Pyroknights and the Copper Conduits can be used to set up. You can also include Shadowlands Guide to bring back either 0-cost silenced Copper Conduits or Pyroknights and get a little bit of extra recursion into the deck. This deck's a lot of fun. I really, really liked it. We tried to make a version that was 3-color and a little bit simpler and easier to use, but this one ended up being very, very good. So I also recommend giving this one a shot if you can. So Quarry and Righteous Fury, Jack the Bounty Hunter, lots and lots of fun things here. Playing Jack over and over again is a really great time. That's it for today's Eternal Brews. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you with more videos very soon. We're working on some Eternal Codexes, some more Eternal Basic stuff. Feel free to like or subscribe if you want to see that stuff coming. Cheers! Have a good one.